Hello everyone, we are very happy to be here. Many greetings from Munich. We are Carolina Banda and my colleague Germán Johannsen. We are very happy to present you our paper, which is called Commons for the Commons, Climate Action in the Amazon Rainforest through AI and Data. Both Germán and me, we are PhD candidates at the University of Munich, and we also work as research fellows at the Max Planck Institute for Innovation and Competition in Munich. Also, my colleague Germán, he works in Berlin at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development. The number of submission of our paper is 1,340.
The tragedy of the commons. That's a concept from 1968 and states that people tend to overuse shared resources, the commons, for their selfish interest up to the point of destroying them. To anticipate the tragedy, the theory says we need to allocate property either to privates or to the state. But the tragedy is already here, as we all know. Research shows that more than 10% of the world's residential housing are under threat from global warming. That goes from luxury houses in the global north to low-income housing in places like the Amazon rainforest region. Another huge problem of the Amazon is the unsustainable production. The Amazon is called the lungs of the planet due to its essential role in the planet's oxygen and carbon dioxide cycles. But we are losing the lungs due to the critical levels of deforestation. Only in 2022, this amount rose to more than 10,000 square kilometers only in the Brazilian Amazon. When the tragedy is already unfolding, the upfront problem is not on human selfishness anymore, but on human coordination. In other words, how are we going to act together to protect what belongs to everyone? A completely different narrative predominates the tech world. Despite threats and harms, people usually recognize the potential benefit of tech innovation to increase material well-being and to deal with different social concerns. Data and AI are currently the stars of the party. So the data revolution is a term coined by the United Nations in 2015 that refers to the actions needed to leverage data for everyone, encompassing elements such as AI, IoT, ICTs, and one I want to stress here, the open data movement, which promotes the accessibility and availability of data to the public. Against the backdrop of the tragedy of the commons on the one hand, and the data revolution on the other, we ask ourselves, how can we leverage the revolution to better deal with the tragedy? This led us to the following hypothesis. A data commons governance approach could be a promising path to explore the potential of AI and data-related advances for climate action in Brazil. So, first of all, what does a data commons governance approach mean in our understanding? So, to explore this hypothesis, we first delve into what that means, and then we analyze some specific use cases, doing like empirical research, and finally, we will do a legal and policy analysis, which is like the basis of our research. We already explained the theory on why the commons lead to a tragedy. Now we will focus on the theory of the commons as a possible solution by briefly showing the literature supporting this approach. Elinor Ostrom, Nobel Prize in Economics 2009, found the tragedy of the commons as not so prevalent as originally was thought. Her research focused on empirical evidence showing real-world communities successfully managing their shared resources. However, one characteristic for success is the fact that these communities were small and stable. This represents two things. First, that the commons may have a scalability issue, which calls for government action. And second, that a failure in managing the commons is usually attributed to an ineffective or insufficient action by the government. Against this backdrop, Professor Matsukato, director of the UCL Institute for Innovation and Public Purpose, has argued in her vast work that this critique stems from seeing the public sector only as an instrument to fill the gaps created by markets. That means like only correcting market failures rather than to set the grand challenges of society and promote collective action to achieve them. She calls the latter a mission-oriented public sector and argues in favor of this new mindset for addressing challenges such as climate change and among others. So following her approach, the scalability issue of the commons could find a solution. From another angle, in a 2023 paper, Purtova and Van Manen developed the idea of sustainable data commons. They identify two elements of their governance. An internal one that refers to the governance of data commons itself, that means like the management of data, and another one, which is an external one, that refers to a political, moral dimension for data governance. And we connect this external political moral element with the framework of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and specifically with the Sustainable Development Goal number 13 on climate action. This is what we call the commons for the commons. So against this theoretical framework, so now the next question is asking if this data relate like framework has some sort of, is reflected like in real life. That drives us to the second part of our research, which is the empirical part, and specifically the analysis of 3 use cases that we have identified in connection to the Amazon rainforest. The first one is data and AI to support the prosecution of illegal deforestation in the Amazon. Second, data and AI to improve the traceability of product origin along the value chain. And third one, big tech and data commons, how the case specifically of Google's philanthropic initiative can be analyzed also in connection to our hypothesis. So going to, we are going to explain now the 3 use cases. I will start with the first, then Carolina will explain the second and third one. The first one, use case, refers to criminal prosecution of illegal deforestation, an enormous challenge for many reasons. Research shows how deforestation takes place in the Amazon by using satellite data and data from sensors hanging like in trees or different places within the Amazon rainforest. But this data, it's very like general. It shows some sort of density of activity in the areas, but it's data that doesn't show which of this deforestation, for example, would be illegal. For this, we would need more data. Who owns the territories, if any? Are they occupied? Who are the individuals behind the illegal production? How is the illegal production moved for its distribution? So we have seen some initiatives, mainly by NGOs, and also like public sector, like for example, Terra Brasilis, which is a public sector service providing satellite maps regarding degradation of native vegetation. But they don't have the authority to analyze the legality of this degradation. We also have seen that, for example, Bolsonaro's government did not work to revert this. So, for example, NGOs involved in fighting climate deforestation, such as Igarape, have stated that tracking compliance with laws, policies, and targets depends on the quality and availability of government data. Now, since Lula's election some months ago, there has been new political approaches to climate change. Our intention is to analyze the merits of these new public sector initiatives in the context and in relation to possible coordinations with NGOs and what would be lacking from a regulatory, policy, and legal point of view to better coordinate like the use of data and AI for the purpose of fighting illegal deforestation.
Thank you, Germán. I think it's very important to continue explaining the use cases, but first provide you a little bit more of context about how we carry out this research and how we could identify these use cases. So for us, as part of the methodology that we had, we first look for use cases that first were using technologies such as AI and data. Then we identify already problems in the Brazilian rainforest, so we narrowed down our use cases just to this kind of problems in this territorial aspect, because as you know, the Amazon rainforest is a vast territory and we needed to narrow down because the Amazon territory covers 5 countries, not only Brazil, but we decided to narrow down to Brazil because both Germán and me, we belong to an international project that has been studying what are the data governance models in emerging economies. And this is how we got familiarized with Brazilian situation. And this is very important because we started this project in 2021 when we had Mr. Bolsonaro as president. And now we have a new political landscape, which also is very interesting for us because when we started to carry out our research about Brazil, there was a lot of problems and also there was not so much attention from the political and the government perspective about the issues in the Amazon. Now, as Germán just mentioned, they have a new plan with President Lula that wants to take charge of the issues in the Amazon, such as illegal deforestation, criminal persecution of this kind of activities. So for us, this transition was also a very important component in our research. Now, coming back to the use cases, Germán already presented to you these tools created by NGOs to track, for example, fires and so on and so forth in the Amazon. Very important is to mention that we also had interviews with these stakeholders. For example, we did Igarape. This NGO from Brazil was invited to our workshop. We also conducted a workshop in December 2022 in Sao Paulo. And here we also had the opportunity to interact with these different stakeholders. We invited stakeholders from the academia, from the industry, startups, NGOs. So it was a really nice opportunity to exchange ideas. And as part of the preparation of the workshop, we already held interviews with startups, with NGOs. This also helped us to get better insights of what is going on in the field. Now, coming back to our use case, regarding use case number 2, we call this developing traceability of product origin along the complete product value chain. We consider that the initiatives who wants to help us as consumers to know what are the origin of the products are very valuable, because there are, for example, in Europe, regulations where prohibit products of illegal deforestation origin. So having these kind of technologies such as blockchain or platforms, data platforms that allow consumers to know the origin of products benefits both consumers but also benefits trade, because if it makes it more transparent and also create trust in the origin of products. So we have, for example, institutions like Trace who are doing this kind of mapping exercise through data platforms. And also we have, for example, Global Forest Watch and Aid Environment, which all these initiatives, what they do is they create linkages between slaughterhouses in Brazil, and they see what is the origin of these products in the map of the Amazon rainforest. So then you know which kind of companies are having their business in certain territories, and you can track these territories. Very importantly is also what happens with the law that is regulating and sometimes not regulating this kind of activities. So in our case, we would like to contribute to this conference, Data for Policy, from a law perspective. Both Germán and me, we are legal scholars, we are both lawyers. Germán is from Chile, I am from Ecuador, and we wanted to know what is happening with the law. We are both competition law scholars. So what we did is to study, for example, mergers and joint ventures that could help these kind of initiatives. And we found that there is just one merger from Brazil, from the Brazilian Competition Authority, CAGI, which cleared a joint venture to develop a platform for measuring sustainability in the agricultural and food supply chain. While this merger is very exciting and interesting, this merger didn't analyze sustainability as a competition law exception, which means that in the law of Brazil, competition law of Brazil, it is nothing written that sustainability as a goal could be a competition law exception to allow or to permit this kind of agreements. So this means that case by case, the authority is going to analyze this kind of agreements case by case. It is also relevant to mention that the decision considered an antitrust protocol. So for this joint venture to work, both companies develop a software, so to say. And to develop or to allow this software to work, there was a protocol, and in this protocol there were principles, so to say, or rules. So it shouldn't exist discrimination between platform users, no exclusive or privileged treatment should exist, and no exchange of sensitive information. It is one of its kind of antitrust protocols in the sustainability field, and we consider this could establish a really interesting blueprint for other cases that could start happening in Latin America. As I told you, this was the first one, but it's a very interesting starting point. Regarding the use case number 3, we also, after our workshop in Brazil and after we collected all the information and also the insights from first hand, we started this research again. So we met with Germán and we started to look up to research initiatives that combine data and AI. And we found that big tech are also present in this case. And Google's, for example, has a new initiative where they want to create data commons for sustainability and for this kind of matters. However, while these kind of initiatives are quite interesting and we consider that this kind of software could contribute to the common good, it's very loable what they are doing. However, we also need to be cautious and consider what are the risks of this kind of philanthropic data commons. And we consider that some questions need to be asked in this kind of initiatives. For example, how are they gaining data for training their foundation models, for example. What is the role of Google in these foundation models race and market? We know that sometimes this kind of big tech initiatives is pursuing an open first strategy and close later strategy, as have happened, for example, in some operations before in other companies. So we wanted to know what is the role of Google in the upcoming foundational model value chain, because the data collected in the Amazon could also be a very important source of power in this foundation models market. And our third question is, what if there are interest in neighboring or adjacent markets? For example, we know that Google has services in many different areas, and we would like to know if maybe a new a new company of Google could be, for example, present in providing services for agribusiness companies. If you remember the previous case about this platform for tracking value chain, data value chain, this was a specific joint venture between two companies. But what happens if data collected by Google could also help them to create new platforms where they can create data as a service, for example, for the agribusiness sector? After we presented our three cases, now we have to come back to our hypothesis, and now it comes the legal part. And now we are going to analyze what happens now we have the problems. And our contribution is create a legal theory that is based on data governance principles. So we have designed four data governance principles to govern these kind of initiatives: neutrality, accountability, transparency, and use by case design. And to create these kind of principles, we also consider what is the purpose of this, what is the purpose of processing the data or this initiative, and then we also are basing our use cases, which we are putting our use cases in the framework of data governance models such as data pools, data collaboratives, and data cooperatives. And this is the project that we have so far developed, and we will be very happy to receive some feedback in London, and we are very excited to meet you all in London. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Looking forward to see you in London in the next days.
Bye.
Ciao.